So my presentation is, I'm going to squeeze it down. It's pretty long, probably. I've got about 5 or 6 different things I want to show you in addition to kind of the presentation. I want to show you some of the documents we use. Our company, Diesel Green. Speak up? Speak up? Speak up. Oh, okay. So our business collects several thousand gallons a month of oil. We started out very small scale. We went from a plastic fish tank in the back of our truck. We moved to a 100-gallon diesel transfer tank. We've been through a whole different, several generations of things. So what I'm going to show you is collecting oil as a business. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the hobbyists quite so much. More from a business. And as a hobbyist, you might get some tips, but okay. I will be using this. So these are some of the things you need to think about. Your business structure, LLC, etc. Getting insurance is very important. Your city or state might require it. They might not. If you don't have it, you're going to be in a world of trouble if anything ever goes wrong. The right equipment, putting in contracts, the collection process itself, the process flow, managing all this stuff, potentially software to use, and then selling WBO. These are the things I'm going to talk about today. So we've been collecting oil since 2005. We started out as a co-op. We became an LLC in 2006. The day we left this conference in 2006, we decided to switch over. We're licensed to collect oil, but not to process it in Texas. We lost our license because we had a small fire, got kicked out of our facility, and when we moved into our new place, we didn't get a new license because the state had gotten so many people wanting to collect oil for biodiesel and things like that, that they started to crack down and decide that they wanted to treat us like everybody else. Yes.
What was the cause of the fire?
It was, we had a spill and I cleaned it up with rags, and then at night when it was dark, one of our interns took the rags and piled them up on top of a barrel of biodiesel. We didn't have an actual fire, we had smoldering rags, and our neighbor put it out and immediately called the landlord, who immediately called me and said, "You're out." The reason we were kicked out is because she didn't have fire insurance, and she realized that if we had burned down our place, our fire insurance would have covered our part, but our neighbors with a recording studio wouldn't have been covered. So because of the lack of insurance, we got kicked out and we lost our rendering license. So insurance is a good one. You need insurance. So we collect about 3,000 gallons per month, which is only about 20% of our revenue because we sell a lot of biodiesel, but it's 60% of our profit. Grease is the new gold. I mean, literally, this stuff is make it or break it.
If I remember correctly, yesterday you said you would use, because you don't have a renderer's license, you take it to a processor and they give you, or you exchange old oil for filtered.
Yeah, and I'm going to go into some of that here too. So if you want to become a renderer, and I always say this, I hate the word rendering because it sounds like we're doing what the big guys are doing. There's a whole industry. There's a magazine called Render Magazine. There's a National Rendering Association that costs about $10,000 a month. I'm sorry, $10,000 a year to join. These guys are mostly interested in cattle feed, but now there's a biofuels column. They're in our space, and you have to be really careful because they're big money, and most of them have no experience in biofuels, and they have a lot of experience in agriculture. So they can talk circles around us when it comes to some of the uses of their products, and they call themselves the original recyclers. So as bad as we try to make them sound, these guys have been taking a nasty product and recycling it for the last 50 or 100 years. So you got to be kind of gentle when you start slamming these guys for turning it into cattle feed. Anyway, so get a business structure that works for you. This is one of the big mistakes we made. We didn't put anything in writing. We had a 3-way partnership that didn't turn out very well. There are different reasons to use one or the other, and tomorrow my presentation on the legality of this stuff. Find the right people ahead of time, not just to work with. Find an accountant, find an attorney, even though it might cost you $100 just to sit down and have that hour-long conversation with them, just to see if they're the right person to work with. Find this stuff up front and ask them good questions. So you have to register your name, get an EIN from the IRS. You got to find a location, which includes zoning and an occupancy permit. Just yesterday, I got a text message from my partner saying that the zoning guy came out and pretty much shut us down yesterday. So our business is now at a standstill until Monday when I go back and sit down with the zoning people and figure out what we haven't done. And this is one that we definitely did not address before we started our business. We didn't look into any of the zoning or the occupancy permit.
You don't have an occupancy permit?
No. Something we didn't know anything about. The previous place we were in, nobody ever said anything. I think what happens is kind of like this hornet's nest. If you step into it, if you start asking the right people the right questions, you're going to find that you might not be able to do the business you wanted to do. If we had asked these questions up front, I wouldn't be here today because I wouldn't be in business. If we had said, I need a $3 million insurance policy and zoning and occupancy permit and a rendering license and IRS and the EPA and Social Security, all this kind of stuff, we wouldn't have done it. And so just be aware up front what you're getting into and recognize you're probably going to become massively in debt or have a very, very small operation for a very long time. Invite the fire marshal out. Nobody wants to talk to the fire marshal. But if you don't, they're going to come find you. The person that called yesterday called because the fire marshal called them. Make sure your landlords understands what you're doing. We have a really nice older couple that own our facility that love what we're doing. They're just thrilled about it. Every time they call us and ask how we're doing, they ask about our business. They love it. Get large general liability. Okay, so the right tools for the job. Start small and modular to scale up cheaper. You're going to be much happier if you spend a little bit of money and you buy something that has some resale value. You spend a lot of money and make some kind of weird contraption that's going to do what you want to do, but in 6 months you're going to outgrow it. You've got something that you can't resell. It's just a loss. What we found is that trailers are cheaper to insure and maintain than a big truck. So we've got 1 pickup and we've got 5 trailers. Trailers cost a few $1,000s. They're easy to resell. Blow out a tire occasionally. It's much cheaper. Used propane tanks can be converted into a variety of useful tanks. We hired a welder to chop a 250-gallon propane tank in half, flip it up on its end, and we have our 2 boilers for dewatering oil. That was our system for a long time. It worked fantastically. We paid him $500, I think, for the work. Find a welder. This is a big one. Everybody in this business needs a welder. And if you don't have a welder, if you don't have a friend who's a welder, you're going to be calling all over town trying to find a welder, and they're very expensive. This is the truck we use to haul everything, and this is our collection trailer. So this is our old one. This is a 500-gallon sucker tank. We had it custom made for us with a 250-gallon tank with a 6,000-pound axle and brakes. We used a bullnose hitch, which is much better than the standard flip-over kind. It's got a 40-foot hose. So we took the 250-gallon tank off, put a 500-gallon tank, and what we discovered is that using this suction, we couldn't get the sludge from the bottom. And when you get up to 100 restaurants, and you've got to go out in a couple of months with a shovel or a scoop and get that sludge off, it's just too much. It's not scalable. So we love this. It was the best thing we ever did. He told everybody that this is the best thing we ever did. Then we got this trash pump system, which is what we started out with. And the trash pump is nasty. It emulsifies the oil. I got sprayed bodily with oil from behind a restaurant one night with the trash pump. It popped out, just like Steve said. It was a disaster. I had somebody, a band, waiting to pull into this bar to unload their equipment. And they're just sitting there waiting for me to get out of the way. And I'm running into the oil to turn it off. This isn't spraying, so but the advantage of this system is it's incredibly fast. You can pump an entire barrel down in just a couple of minutes, even in the cold. So this is what we use today, 750-gallon tank with a 5-horsepower gasoline-powered trash pump. You can get a diesel-powered trash pump. They're even louder and even heavier and usually won't withstand biodiesel. So it's your call. We have 2 3,000-pound axles with brakes. In Texas, we now have to inspect and trailer to use it for commercial purposes. We got a $150 ticket for that, so be aware in your areas. In fact, we have to take our trailers down to get them inspected before we register it if it doesn't have a VIN number, and they take pictures of it and then give you a VIN number.
On the pumps part, just from a technical side, have you considered PTO driven, some kind of thing off the truck?
I don't know that there's a way to adapt a PTO pump to just a standard pickup. Not that I'm aware of. My experience with PTO pumps is when an 18-wheeler pulls up and a PTO pump is part of the whole rig.
With the Allison transmission, you can do it, but it's hard to do.
It's So what we figure is that once we get beyond the 750 gallon, we're going to a pumper truck, almost certainly. Was there another question?
Yeah, I have a question. So why didn't the Super Sucker design work for you, or did it
Not
work
enough
better?
vacuum.
So did it work better with the 250, where the vacuum pump
No.
was more appropriately sized? No.
It was just, oh yeah, and speaking of the vacuum, we have an air compressor. So we pull down about 30 inches of mercury, which is all you can get, from what I always hear. Once we get out in the field, we have a 12-volt pump mounted underneath there to keep the pressure going. So between every stop, we recharge it. And again, we loved it. It's great for pumping good oil. But what we found is we kept getting those bottoms out there, and we'd collect them. And what we'd do is we'd take a 300-gallon tote of just garbage, and we would take it right over to somebody else's rendering tank and pump it right in there. There's a rendering tank. We did this for about 2 years. It had no name on it, and they picked it up every time. I mean, it would have been real easy for them to put a note that says, stop putting this garbage here, and they never did. It was a company, a restaurant that we collected from that moved from this other company to us. They didn't even know who the other company was. No label, no nothing. So we took a chance, filled it up, and within a week it was emptied.
So the runner wants all that.
Yeah, I think that's how we came to the conclusion. Well, it depends on what they're doing. It's iffy.
It's the lifestyle.
Yeah, let me ask this guy first.
There's a lot of different kinds of trash pumps. Are you talking about a diaphragm, a big diaphragm?
That's a good
pump, or are you
point.
talking about a-
So when I say trash pump, I'm referring to a centrifugal pump, but that's just because that's what we bought for $300 from Harbor Freight. However, there's a billion different kinds of pump. The key word that you usually find is semi-trash pump, and it's able to pass solids of a certain size. If you get a limit or a lime in there, you're probably screwed. We've gotten a variety of different things. We actually ruined a pump in that same trash tank that I told you about that we used to dump into. Well, somebody had the bright idea that let's just take the oil out of there because we didn't put this oil in there and we don't know where it came from. So karma gets you. When you take oil from somebody else's tank, what do you think happened? He sucked up a bunch of marbles. It ruined our pump, and I don't know whether it was sabotage or what it was, but it cost us a $450 pump that we bought as part of this whole system. So stick to what you know, your own tanks, and don't mess around with stuff that you have no business messing around with. I'm going to go through, I've got a lot of stuff, but real quick, Steve, yeah.
The bottoms, what we do is we take the bottoms, we drain the bottoms until they're as solid as we can get them, then we can just compost them.
Just a simple folder, and inside that folder, well, these information requests, and they will fact state legislatures have legalized WDO as a fuel. North Carolina did, right?
The North Carolina Department of Revenue defines biodiesel as, like some other states, it's this really vague, illegitimate definition of any fuel made from like agricultural products or something like that.
Okay.
That includes WDO.
So we're covered with that too. There are some incentives. The IRS.
You can take the question mark off of California also. They also actually lump WDO in the biodiesel.
Okay.
As an alternative fuel.
I think part of the problem, at least in Texas, is when I called them and asked them about it, they said, yeah, you know, if it's like ASTM, they said, no, I'm talking about vegetable oil. Oh, I see. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's okay. So it was very vague. It wasn't
The issue in California is to sell at retail, you need to still have a certified pump and meter.
Yeah, we're not
That
doing
does it
that.
with a dollar figure. That's a problem.
So the IRS offers a 50-cent per gallon rebate, similar to the biodiesel credit, but it's under the alternative fuel credit and the alternative fuel mixture credit. Those two credits are the 6146 is what they're called in the code, and it's called liquid hydrocarbons from biomass. The IRS also offers a 20% rebate on an alternative fuel refueling station. So you sell your customer on a whole station, they get 20% back at the end of the year. Some states exempt WDO from the road taxes. What is it worth? If you Google for yellow grease USDA, you're going to find that it's worth about $3 a gallon on the open market in a 7,000-gallon tanker load, as long as it's like 10% moisture, insaponifiables, and what's the
Moisture, insolubles, and unsaponifiables.
Thank you. Insolubles and unsaponifiables. We pay 50 cents a gallon to this company 100 miles away to render it for us because we lost that license. Today we're spending about $1,500 a month doing that. Well, that $1,500 a month means we don't have a $50,000 rendering plant. We don't have inspections. We don't have any of that crap. So we love it. However, if we were at 10,000 gallons a month and we're spending $5,000 a month, it starts to change, but we'll see. So our profit margin is about $2.50 per gallon for vegetable oil. If we were doing 10 or 20,000 gallons a month, we wouldn't charge this much for oil. We've really maintained that our profit margin feels high to people that are from the fuel business. It's incredibly high, but we're doing such low volumes, and I work for free until the day that I'm getting a salary. We're going to continue to maintain a really high profit margin.
The IRS, 50 cents, is that a rebate or is it a deduction?
Rebate. You file the 720 for that. I'll get into that tomorrow as well.
Have you got a labor cost factor in there?
I did. I called it distribution or transportation, 50 cents. Right now we're on the low side because we're pretty low budget. Let me quickly flip through a couple of other documents we have. So we have what we call the prospectus. And this is the carbon life cycle of oil. My wife put this together, taking little pieces here and there. Plants absorb CO2, goes into used cooking oil. We heat and settle it to get rid of the food. Goes into biodiesel, gets pumped into people's cars, they burn it, goes back into CO2. Really simplified model. We try not to get too technical, but this is about 30 or so of the restaurants that we work with. When we show this to customers, a lot of times they sit there and say, "Oh, cool, you guys are doing Red House? Those are some friends of mine." It really helps. The other thing we're going to do is add a couple of quotes here, but we don't want to overwhelm them with information. These are our containers we show them. We show them how we collect their oil, that it's done at no charge. We show them what we do with it, how we process it at our facility. This has been changed, but we haven't updated it yet. We show them that it's used for biodiesel production or to power vehicles running on straight vegetable oil. Then we show them a couple of pictures of people filling up at our pumps. We show them what we do with their information. We put it on our website and we put it in our brochure. And we give them this sticker that says "Fryer to Fuel." Our cooking oil is recycled into biofuels by our friends at Diesel Green Fuels. We show them economy, ecology, and ethics. Those are kind of the three things that we say why you should work with us. And we go through all these things that we all already know. And then we tell them about ourselves. I've got years of computer background. Michael has a business degree, so it makes a pretty good pair. So a couple other things real quick. So we have a brochure. We stuff that in there too. This is a trifold, a double-sided trifold that we put the different aspects of our business. This is our contract. I'd be happy to share it with anybody. There's nothing secret about it. This took us a while to go through. There's a guy in Maryland that's starting a business like us that couldn't attend this, but he's also taking his attorney and he's tweaking a couple things too. So open source, totally. This is our sticker. We put these on a certain Avery label and give them away.
Do you have any of those stickers?
I'm sorry?
Did you bring any?
I didn't bring anything. I didn't think about that. I was pretty busy at work. And this is our route sheet that we go through an 8-week cycle where we show different areas of town and where to collect from in those areas. Now, we used to do it this way where we put an X if we collect it, and we put like 1/2 or 3/4 to talk about roughly how much was in there when we collected it. We've changed that since then, where now we actually estimate how many gallons from each location. That's a big difference. Then we have our complete list of restaurants with little X's next to which ones have 5-year contracts. We have a sheet here that's new and special. Michael needs to take a sticker. Michael needs to put this on the route sheet. Jason needs to call and confirm, those kind of things. Then we have a list of the places that they call us or we have to call them. This is a mock-up of our new website that the web developer is doing for us. The idea is to highlight the restaurants, maybe even have a little flash animation that shows a restaurant. Click on it, it takes you to their page. We really want to promote the restaurants. And then we were in the local city magazine called Austin Monthly Magazine. They put us on the table of contents, which was pretty cool. Then they did an article on us called Mad Green Scientist. And they took a picture in front of all of our tanks and then just interviewed us about what we do for the environment. That got us a lot of publicity. And then this is our website. So that's pretty much it. Probably have a few minutes for questions. What do you got? So it's 10:20. I think we're done. But anybody have any questions?
For you and Steve, you talked about when you get a customer, then you try to get the neighbors around them. Do you find that once you get one restaurant, that it's easier to get the neighboring restaurants because of the well, if they're doing it, I ought to do it attitude or
It
something like
is,
that?
and you know, one thing I didn't mention here, but Steve did, is he puts his name and everything on the barrel. We get a lot of people calling and say, hey, I saw you're taking the oil from Mrs. B's. We're Premazy next door. Can you take our oil too? Referral is a big one. And restaurant owners, people that work at a restaurant, a lot of them don't work at the same restaurant forever. They bounce to other restaurants, and it's very incestuous. They all know each other.
And they drink together. And
Yeah, they do a lot of other things together. So it's a good idea to be very friendly with restaurants because they'll refer you to them.
This is a question I get for both of you. In the election process, you both use trailers. You have a sucker that you were using, and you have barrels. I noticed you have 3 barrels. Is there a minimum?
we usually have 6 on the
6
trailer.
barrels on one trailer? So is there like exchange barrels, or do you use one for all the sludge and?
We only pump sludge every other month or 2 months or 3 months, so we don't pump that much sludge. But we're building a sucker tank, pretty much like what he has also.
And then with your sucker tank, Jason, how come you don't have a barrel attached to the side so you don't contaminate your oil with the stuff from the bottom of the barrel?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So it used to be that we really needed to get the good clean oil into our settling tanks, and all the sludge would go elsewhere. Well, now that we're outsourcing it to somebody else, the beauty of it is we take every bit and we give it to him. He has a boiler that he boils oil on using the sludge. So he takes whatever sludge he gets from his settling tanks, puts it in a like a paint can, puts it in this boiler, like a double boiler that he built out of big propane tanks. And the heat of it catches on fire and makes this tremendously hot. It's amazing. I mean, his system, he did an incredible job. It's probably a patentable system with this heat and the sludge and the double boiler. It's cool. But anyway, the answer to your question is we can take it all because we don't care. It's his problem, and we pay him 50 cents per gallon of finished oil. We made sure up front. He tried to calculate, well, there's probably going to be this much sludge, and we said, we don't care how much sludge we give you. You figure that out, because we want our stuff segregated. We made him buy a 1,500-gallon cone-bottom tank. So when we go there, we don't have pictures of that because it's all still under construction. The idea is we go there, plug in our 2-inch trash pump, we output from the bottom, fills it up, and then he sucks off the bottom, gets rid of the sludge, and then puts our clean oil into the processor.
Where does the clean oil filter down to? Is there a micro on the shell or going in before you can
Yes.
sell it?
What we did is we interrupted his biodiesel process, and we put a T in, and out of there goes to the filter. So he does his normal biodiesel feedstock dewatering, just like you do to make biodiesel, and we chop it off there, and we take it out and filter it to 5 microns.
5 microns.
Yeah, and we make him do that too.
Render Magazine is free online. Sign up for an issue. Get to know how these people think, because this is your competition. Know how they're doing it.
One more thing I want to mention too is in terms of low quality stuff and stuff being worse than the barrel, we use a product called Santoquin, which is an oxidative stabilizer. We add it right to the barrel after we pick up.
Really?
And actually, stuff will become more acidic while sitting in the barrel, especially accounts that you don't pick up from very frequently.
And what's it called?
Santoquin.
Santoquin.
Something called Santoquin that stabilizes raw vegetable oil. This is really important. Oil will go bad the more animal products in it. You can pick up stuff that's 5, and a month later it can be 20.
Exactly right.
Santoquin.
Spell it?
Santoquin.
The company that manufactures
That's what they use when they do.
Novus?
They use
Novus
that
manufactures.
That's what they use.
Novus?
Yeah,
When you're looking for them on the web, it's, you look for Novus.
Can you use that? Have you found that?
Hey guys, can we have just a couple more minutes for a couple questions? If you have conversations, if you could take them outside, I still have a couple more questions.
And the Santoquin is 0.4 pounds per 55-gallon drum.
Okay.
And at 250 gallons, it's 2.2 pounds, just from a yield perspective.
About 5 ounces a drum.
It is expensive.
Okay.
But you're talking pennies when you start to break it down per
What we do is we suck the barrels and then squeeze in a little bit and go on to the next one so that when they start to dump it already.
We had a question back here. What was your question?
Is there any difference in between using like a cylinder or a because I'm from Puerto Rico and in our business we manufacture diesel engine generators. So I have a couple of welders. I was wondering, instead of making a cylinder block like the gas tank that you use, if it could be like a cube.
Yeah, it could be anything. You talking about the